Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a little, I don't know, an analysis of the deck I used in the London Internationals. I just want to say I didn't do very well. I came in a very respectable 190th place. So, yeah, this deck didn't win anything. It is basically the most cookie-cutter Cernius Rainbow Road deck with heavy EXs instead of the Stage 1 decks, and I'm gonna go through why I chose the heavy EXS versions instead of the Bishop Galvantula version. Anyway, this deck was there was a lot of this deck during the London. I did not think there would be so much of this deck during the London. It was the second most common deck overall after Yveltal. So it is a pretty solid deck nonetheless. It is a very fair deck. A lot of people teched a lot to beat this, and well, it worked. Let me just say that. I struggled basically against every kind of deck I met. I struggle, and this is not a deck that has a superb matchup against anything other than maybe Mega Rayquaza. This is the kind of deck that has like an okay matchup against everything. It doesn't lose. It doesn't lose automatically against anything. That's basically the gist of this deck, and that's why I decided to play this. And it's a fun deck to play nonetheless. I'm not gonna lie. Now here's an overview of the whole deck. I'm gonna go through the cards and what they all do. So yeah, let's just get right into this. So let's start with the Cernius, the main attacker. Basically, you're always gonna play 4 of this card if you're a Cernius Rainbow Road deck, and it has a lot of things going for it. It is a basic non-EX Pokemon, which makes it very consistent, and also the fact that it is a non-EX makes it able to win a lot of price trade-offs. If you can get like in a position where you knock out his Pokemon, he knocks out your Pokemon, you knock out his Pokemon, he knocks out your Pokemon, back and forth, so on, you will most likely win, because this is probably one of the only decks that doesn't rely on an EX attacker. Rainbow Force also has a very high damage output, basically every time you attack you're gonna get a 1-hit KO. That's at least the thought behind the deck. You're never gonna get like a 2-hit KO or a 3-hit KO. Most of the time you will 1-hit KO things, no matter how much HP they have, because Cernius can theoretically hit for like, I don't know, 300, I think, and there's nothing in the format with that much HP. Basically makes Cernius very, very powerful. A little thing to note at the end is a resistance to dark. It's not a very big pro. Basically, most of the time it doesn't even matter, because Yveltal EX only need 3 energies to knock you out with an Evil Ball if you have 3 energies on Cernius anyway. And if you like trying to get big knockouts with Rainbow Force, Zoroark will knock you out no matter what. So it's not a very big pro, but it's worth mentioning. It is pretty good against things like the Fright Knight Yveltal and such. But other than that, it is most likely useless. Its biggest downside is probably its 3 energy cost attack. It sounds a bit silly saying that 3 energies for 250 damage is bad, but you notice this especially well in the games where you have to attack every turn. This deck, and you don't really have any cheap tricks like the Mega Turbo or any like boosting cards like that. The only thing you have is Max Elixir, and you're very reliant on hitting them. But I used something else as well. I'm gonna go back to that. Basically, you might find that this deck is not as reliant as you want it to be. You might struggle to attack, you might struggle to get Pokemon on the bench, and so on and so forth. And also, this might sound a bit silly, but 120 HP is not great. It is 2-hit KO'd by basically every Pokemon that attacks, and it is easily 1-hit KO'd by things like Yveltal and such. I mean, you can boost it with things like the Fighting Fury Belt. This is a basic Pokemon, so you can get it up to 160 HP. But again, most of the time after you get a knockout, Xerneas will die. So you always have to have a backup Xerneas on the bench. Again, makes it a bit difficult to play. Nonetheless, a very good card, and I love this thing. Then we go to our support Pokemon. These are my two main support Pokemon, very common cards in today's format. Shaymin EX and Hoopa EX. Hoopa EX is probably the thing that makes the EX deck work much better than the stage 1 decks. The stage 1 decks are very hard to play because you can't get all the Pokemon down quickly. With this kind of deck, with this version of the deck, you can like start with, I don't know, let's say you start with the Xerneas. Then you can Hoopa, fill your bench immediately, and remember, you can play a Hoopa for a Shaymin as well. So immediately you get like all those cards out of your deck, you're immediately hit for like what, 150 damage if one of them is a Volcanion, and it's insane. And then they're out of the deck. Now you won't be drawing Hoopa, now you won't be drawing Volcanion, now you won't be drawing any of those cards anymore. Now you're more likely to draw energies with your max elixirs. You're more likely to draw tool cards if you need like a float stone. Basically, it makes the deck so much more consistent. Hoopa EX is the main difference between the stage 1 and the heavy EX deck. And just to clarify, I lost every game Hoopa EX was priced. I only play one of it in the deck, and I don't think it is necessary to play more than one. But every time it was priced, I lost. No matter who I played against, Hoopa EX is just that good, especially in this kind of deck. The Shaymin EX, I think everybody knows what this thing does. The ability setup is what you're mainly going to use it for. When you bench it, draw till you have 6 cards in your hand. You don't use your supporter for the turn. Very good card. Also note that you can use Sky Return. It might happen, like if you want to conserve energies and such, or get like a knockout with... If you can get a knockout with Shaymin, that's usually the best way to get a knockout, because then you like keep the double colorless, and you can like use that with a Xerneas or whatever you want afterwards, and you can lose a Pokemon like Jolteon instead, or something, because you don't... I mean, you can still use the Shaymin afterwards, you can still use setup. I mean, just note that you can use Sky Return is what I'm trying to say. It's not useless. You cannot use Rainbow Road without different types of Pokemon, and these are the main different types I chose. Basically, all of these Pokemon do something besides just being a different type. That was my main purpose. I didn't just choose Pokemon that was I need a grass Pokemon. Let's choose, I don't know, Bulbasaur. That's a pretty silly reason, right? I want a Pokemon that can do something. Now, of course, since I'm playing Hoopa, I wanted as many EXs as I could fit, and I decided I fell on these 3 EXs here. These are the main 3 EXs that I fell on, that are different types and that also can do something. So Jolteon EX, I think I mentioned it previously. 160 HP, free retreat. Mainly that's the main reason I picked it, and it is so good as well. I mean, just having every time like a Xerneas gets knocked out, just being able to just toss the Jolteon EX out immediately. You don't even have to think about it. I mean, it is so good. And then it gives you a moment to think. You don't have to sacrifice anything. You don't have to guess if you're going to get the energy or not. And it is also very powerful in the fact that, you know, it's very easy to abuse max elixirs this way, because a max elixirs only work on the Pokemon on the bench. So you cannot have a Xerneas on the active spot with a max elixir. You have to have the Xerneas on the bench, and having a Pokemon with free retreat makes it so much more easy to, you know, use max elixir, attach the double colors, and then retreat Jolteon, attack. Just a fantastic Pokemon, and I think every heavy EX deck should use Jolteon for exactly that purpose. Then we have Carbink. Yes, this is the correct Carbink, not the Safeguard one. And the reason why I use this card instead of the Safeguard Carbink is because I want this to help Xerneas. The Safeguard Carbink doesn't do anything unless it's active, and all it might do is stall me a couple of turns. It doesn't do anything besides that. This one, however, has the ability Energy Keeper. basic energy attached to your basic Pokemon can't be discarded by effects of your opponent's attack, ability, or trainer cards. So basically, you're immune to Crushing Hammer. That's all I wanted to do, this to do, which might help me in the Mega Scissor matchup, because this deck doesn't have a bad matchup against Mega Scissor. But if Mega Scissor is able to like knock out all my fairy energies, and I won't be able to attack for a couple of turns, I might be in a very bad spot. So this can prevent it until Garbodor comes in play, of course. But you know, that might be the turns I need to win the game. And again, I didn't get any use for Carbink in the tournament. I did face a Mega Scissor deck, but I didn't play any hammers. But either way, I felt that it's a good tech to just have a Carbink in the deck. Having the possibility to play this if you see your opponent displaying a lot of hammers is a great thing. The third Pokemon is Genesect EX. Now this is a staple in this kind of decks. Metal type, drive change. Once during your turn, you may put a Pokemon tool card attached to this Pokemon into your hand. So basically, if you, for example, this makes you able to play a lot of weird tools, which I'm going to come back to later. If you, for example, have like a float stone and an N in your hand, and you don't want to attach the float stone to anything, just attach it to Genesect. You can take it up again after you've played the N. It gives you a lot of freedom in that regard. It also helps you with EXP share if you don't have a Xerneas on the bench there and then. So again, it gives you a little bit of breathing room. It makes it easy to play. It makes it easy to get the tools you want on the Pokemon you want, and it's just a nice ability overall. And basically, that's the only thing Genesect does. The drive change ability, you can't use the attack because I don't play any Steel Energy, and 2 retreat is not very good, but nah, I like the ability. And then we have Flygon, and what an odd Pokemon this is. I used Voice of the Sands once, only once, and it didn't really help me. Flygon is a weird Pokemon, and I chose this over Giratina. Giratina was the other Pokemon I considered, but Giratina doesn't help my Xerneas. Giratina only do anything if it's active, and when it's active, I'm not attacking, so it doesn't really do anything. The Flygon, however, it is very situational. For it to really work, one of my Xerneas has to die, or any Pokemon has to die. Then I can bring up Flygon with a Float Stone, use Voice of the Sands, and then retreat attack. Basically, what Voice of the Sands does is, I wrote Escape Rope, but it's basically a switch for your opponent. Your opponent has to switch his Pokemon with one of his bench Pokemon. Very situational, but you have the option at least, right? And it is a Dragon type. I don't have a Dragon type in my deck, and my deck does more damage the more Pokemon I have, so yeah. Celebi, what a fun Pokemon that was. Leap Through Time. Let me just tell you what Leap Through Time does. If Celebi is knocked out, I get to flip a coin, and if that is a heads, I can take Celebi and all the cards attached to it into my deck again, which is just fantastic. Also, and my opponent doesn't take any prizes for it, that's fun. Also, one Pokemon I forgot here is actually the best Pokemon in these kind of decks. It is Volcanion EX. I just noticed that right now. Volcanion is 2 types. Volcanion EX. I might edit in a Volcanion EX somewhere. I don't know. Volcanion EX is 2 types. Why would you not use Volcanion EX? I mean, it is instant 60 damage. Volcanion EX makes it possible to reach 190 damage with only 5 Pokemon on the bench. Yeah, play Volcanion EX. It's the only basic with 2 types, and you need it. Now I'm gonna go through the tech Pokemon, the cards that I kind of just threw in there to like counter certain stuff. Now Dragonite EX is a bit fun. The ability Pull Up lets me put 2 basic Pokemon from the discard pile into my hand. So if they are like getting rid of my Skyfield, I can then place down another Skyfield and then use Dragonite to fill my bench up again. That's at least a thought about using Dragonite. That is at least the reasoning behind using Dragonite. But one thing I noticed it could do as well, and I used this once as an emergency attacker against and another Xerneas deck. Because I'm gonna tell, that's a bit funny. Against the opposing Xerneas, the opposing Xerneas deck got a really good start. He was like max elixiring, he had like a ready Xerneas on the spot, and I didn't have anything. I played a Hooper, and then a Shaman, and try to draw a Xerneas, because he got such a good start. I couldn't just Ultra Ball for a Xerneas and attach a DCE. I thought that would be a bit too risky, because all he had to do then is just Lysander and catch my Xerneas, and then I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this in I'm gonna play the Hooper, get down a lot of Pokemon, draw cards, and I didn't get anything. And then I decided, okay, I do have a Dragonite on my hand, right? So what I can do is I can put down the Dragonite with the DCE. I started max elixiring that thing up, and during the game, Dragonite got a couple of knockouts, and it was just such a it was just such a silly Pokemon to attack with. Hyper Beam is a really expensive attack, but it really helped in that game, because 130 is enough to knock out Xerneas. Also, it discards energy from anything that has more HP, so it can help. It can do stuff. Although I wouldn't be too reliant on Dragonite EX. It can work, just note that yourself. Dragonite EX can attack, and it really helped me. Xerneas Break. The only reason I play this is to beat Jolteon EX. If Jolteon EX didn't exist, I would 100% play Fighting Fury Belt. There's no reason to play Xerneas Break when you have Fighting Fury Belt in play, unless you want to beat Jolteon EX. And the reason why Xerneas Break is good against Jolteon EX is because, well, it can hit it first of all. It can hit, it isn't all the basic anymore. But probably the main reason why I like this better than stuff like Ace Trainer and such is because this thing has 150 HP. Meaning that a Jolteon without a Fighting Fury Belt cannot 2-hit KO this thing. Meaning that they have to commit a little bit to knock this thing out. And they have to, because this thing hits really, really hard, and if they don't stop it, it's just gonna get knockout after knockout after knockout after knockout. Remember, Jolteon only has, what, 160 HP, 200 with that Fighting Fury Belt. That's not a lot for this deck to accomplish. It's not a lot for this deck to knock out, so I felt that this is the best way to beat Jolteon. It's not a perfect way, it probably can't beat multiple Jolteons, but it is something. It is one way of beating it, and it is one way of beating at least one Jolteon, and then you can try to Lysander around the second one. I don't know, super rod up the Xerneas Break and use it a second time. I don't know. It just gives you at least one way of beating it. It's not perfect, but it is a way. Now we're gonna go through the supporters. Nothing too fancy here. We have Sycamore. Discard, draw 7, draw cards, very consistent. I played 2N, which is not only a draw card but also a very good disruptive card. I twice during the tournament and my opponent down to 1, and I won both of them. N is a really good supporter card. Never, ever. You should never put yourself in a position where an N to 1 can lose you the game. It's very hard, because, you know, the Xerneas decks usually put on a lot of pressure all the time, but try not to. I know it's difficult, and it is really annoying losing to that. I played 2 Lysanders. Lysander is a catcher. The reason why I play 2 Lysanders is because most of the time I will get 1-hit KOs. The reason why, and if you're a really offensive deck that gets a lot of KOs, you should usually play at least 2 Lysanders. Because you can really disrupt your opponent by killing its only attacker on the bench early on. That could easily like give you a 4-prize lead really early. While decks like Mega Scissor or decks like that, if they don't really need Lysander because they only attack him for 120, which isn't enough to get KOs on most of the things in the format. And just Lysander out a random thing and doing 120, well, they might just retreat that thing, and now you have just done 120 to a Pokemon on the bench. What a great thing, right? Lysan is really good in the really offensive deck. That's why you should play 2 of them if you can get a lot of big knockouts, especially early on. Hex Maniac. Basically, it is a tech against Volcanion and Greninja. I faced one Volcanion deck. It didn't help. It didn't help at all. If I looking back at it, I probably would have a third N instead of Hex Maniac. So yeah, if you're playing this deck, I would switch it for a third N. I think you can do without it. The consistent N is much more consistent, and it will most likely help you a lot more than a Hex Maniac will. I mean, Hex Maniac can be good in... Hex Maniac is a pretty cool card. I love Hex Maniac as a card because it can be used very early on. And like, you can like play a Hex Maniac turn 1 and deny them the opportunity to play Shaman and Hoopa EXs. But it's really hard to do that when you don't have Battle Compressor, and in like, if you're not playing against Volcanion or Greninja, it is most likely not gonna do anything at all. So keep that in mind. I would play a third N, but if you love Hex Maniac as I do, just bring it because you love the card. I don't know. Then we have the items. Consistency, consistency, consistency. 4 Ultra Ball. Why 4? Because you need that Hoopa EX early. When you need that second Xerneas immediately after your first one is dying. You need it before it is dying. 4 Ultra Ball, really good. Most cards play 4 Ultra Ball anyway, so who am I kidding? 4 Versus Seekers. Great card. Allows you to play your supporters over and over again. It also allows you to play a little bit more funky supporter line. You can play a lot more one-off supporters and get them when you need them. Like for example, 1 Hex Maniac. Nobody would play 1 Hex Maniac if Versus Seeker weren't in the format, because you would never have the Versus Seeker when you needed. Because you would never have the Hex Maniac when you needed it. That's what I'm trying to say. 4 Max Elixirs. Why not? You need to attack every turn. Once your Xerneas dies, you need a way to attack back. 3 Trainer's Mails. Consistency. 3 Skyfields. I would like to have 4, but I couldn't fit one. I couldn't fit an extra one. You might switch a Hex Maniac for a Skyfield. Who knows? The Stadium War is a bit annoying with this kind of deck, especially with Parallel City. You need to be a bit careful. So yeah, maybe 4 Skyfield would be optimal, but I only played 3. I couldn't fit the 4th one. I was like I was like, if I face an opponent with a lot of stadiums, I'm gonna try to outplay them. I only need to kill 3 Pokemon if all the Pokemon are EXs. So yeah, 2 Floatstone, because a lot of the crap in my deck has a lot of retreat. 2 EXP shares. This again, consistency. I want to attack every turn. So once a Xerneas dies, I can keep a Fairy Energy and take it to one of my bench Xerneas. So that way, that Xerneas only needs a DCE to attack, and yeah, I can continue keeping up the pressure. Very consistent card. I love it in this deck. Fighting Fury Belt adds 40 HP to my Pokemon, to my Xerneas, and does 10 more damage. Really, I mean, you know, it's only gonna get any use in like, again, Greninja and Volcanion probably, because most of the things hits really hard anyway. You can probably do something against Yveltal as well, maybe. But I like EXP share. I like EXP share more because EXP share, again, consistency. I want to attack every turn, and Fighting Fury Belt, you can. It is possible to get around Fighting Fury Belt, is what I'm trying to say. Super Rod. I don't think I have to explain that card at all. It lets me get Pokemon from the discard pile into my deck. Basically, if I lose the Stadium War too many times, I can still bench more Pokemon. Without Dragonite, I can use Dragonite twice in a match. So yeah, just for that purpose. Also, it might also help if I'm running dry on energies. That has happened. So yeah, just a quick overview again of the deck. So we play 4 Xerneas and the Volcanion, which I forgot to put in this stupid presentation. Yeah, I can also tell you about the energy count. I played 8 Fairy Energy and 4 DCEs. I don't think there's any reason to play anything else. This worked perfectly for me. I mean, I can't see why 7-4 would work better. I can't see why 9-4 would work better. I think 8-4 is the best energy count you can have with this kind of deck. It worked really well for me. I don't know if you have any different opinions about that, but I just feel it's really good. So yeah, that's the Xerneas deck I played at the London Internationals. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. Celebi's ability came through in one match. Dragonite EX attacked in one match. And it was a fun deck. It was a fun deck. It's a really offensive deck, and you are usually gonna get a lot of big KOs, and unfortunately it seems like a lot of people were prepared for this. It was a very common deck at the internationals, so don't expect like this to be any kind of rogue deck. This is one of the better ones, one of the higher tier one, but also one of the decks that are easy to prepare against. One stadium is enough to, you know, disrupt this deck to hell. I mean, that Parallel City, man, it is so annoying against this kind of deck. But anyway guys, that's all for me. Take care and bye bye.